try to introduce a new sound, your tongue will revert to a sound that it already knows. So most people will say kosa. People who don't know how to say it, they'll say kosa. And what they're doing is that they're replacing a sound that they haven't learned with a sound that they have learned, right? It's very common amongst all people in the world. A very common thing to happen. Isizulu. Isizulu. So these are just examples from various places in Africa, Niger Congo. We'll listen to a brief thing on the Fulani language. You'll hear them speaking the Fulani language. Those of you who are at the back, please fill in these seats so you can hear because I don't have external speakers. You know what? Hold on one second. I think I can try to do the sound through the projector and it may be a little louder. So hold on one second. So it's Fulani. Now in this video it's showing Fulani culture. So if you see the people who are herding cows even in Accra, most of them are coming from the north. A lot of them are Fulani speakers. So they're mainly known for cattle herding. Just for time, just keep moving. We also have the Kiswahili language. Now, where is Fulani spoken? Did we mention? Can anyone name me countries where Fulani is spoken? Niger, you can find it there. Where else? Senegal, yes. Ghana, you can find it here in Ghana. Guinea, yes. Mali, Burkina, very good. Where else? Nigeria. Basically, all throughout West Africa, you can find Fulani speakers. Some in very large population centers, others as minority groups, but they are all over. So they were known as traders, people who did trade all throughout West Africa. So it's a very common language. Here we have Kiswahili. So all these are coming from the same large family in terms of natural family. This is coming from Kenya. Very good. Now, where is Kiswahili spoken? Tanzania, very good. Kenya, good. Where else? Not so much unless it's people who have migrated from some of these other places. Uganda, very good. So when you're thinking about Kiswahili, one reason why people think that Kiswahili is a major language in South Africa is because of Mary Makeba. She had a song called Malaika. So she's from South Africa, but she was singing a song in Kiswahili, but it's not a very common language in South Africa, except for people who migrated from East Africa down to South Africa. Very recently it was announced that Rwanda was going to make Kiswahili an official language, right? So all of these East African countries. Here we have isiXhosa. isiXhosa. This here is small. They say how you test people to see if they're coming from South Africa. So they're saying this is how they would test people to see if they're coming from South Africa, because if you can't click, they say no. We continue. This is Yoruba. So we're talking about all the different tones in the Yoruba language. What you'll see here is actually a plotting of where the tones are in the Yoruba language. Can you hear what they're saying? Right? So depending on where the tones are, that will determine what the word would mean. So everything he's saying, if he changes the tone, it will mean something entirely different. Now, where is Yoruba spoken? Nigeria, also Benin. Good. Where else? Not so much, but you can find some small pockets of speakers. Cameroon. Not so much. Mainly, so there's a continuum of Yoruba that goes all the way from Nigeria, all the way into eastern Ghana, right? So there are places in eastern Ghana where they speak a variety of Yoruba as well, right? They call it Kiliji, right? Also, it's spoken in the diaspora. So I went to Brazil, and a guy came up to me, saw what I was wearing, he came up to me and he started speaking to me in Yoruba, right? So you can find it where in the enslavement of African people, where people were taken to places like Brazil, Trinidad and Tobago, they still speak it there, Puerto Rico, Cuba, all these places, they still speak Yoruba. Now we have Wolof. And this is somebody who you may have heard of. This is Akon, and he's going to speak some small Wolof. You know what? Time to teach it all. They speak smaller Wolof. Now, one thing about Wolof is it has a sound that some people here in Ghana find a bit difficult, which is ham. This is a sound. Where is Wolof spoken? You're not allowed to answer. Very good. Senegal and where else? Gambia. Very good. You can find there's Senegalese Wolof and then there's Gambian Wolof. It's also, yeah, you can find some people in Guinea as well, Guinea Conakry. Now, it's a major language in Senegal, less so in Gambia. You have more Mandinka and other there, but you can still find it. The major difference between Wolof and Senegal is that you have something like a word like chi. In Gambia, they will say si, right? So chibiti, they will say cbt, right? Also, in Gambian Wolof, they'll add the a sound to the end of other words. So lepka, right? So it's still to eat, but they'll add this a. So as soon as you hear someone speak, you will know, okay, I know where you're coming from. It's just like the difference between if I hear someone speak Asante versus if I hear someone speak Epapiru, or if I hear someone speak Fanti. As soon as they open their mouth, I say, I know where you're coming from. Now we come to Nilo-Saharan languages, 196 languages, spoken mainly in Central Africa. You have languages like Dinka in Sudan, Luo, Kanuri, again the Sudan, Kenya area. You have phonemes including implosive, so what you're doing, you are making the air come in instead of go out as you're making the sound. And then also ejectives. Right? They also have pre-nasal consonants. We find this in languages here in Ghana too. Mba, nde, nte, nje, nge. Right? So you start the word with these types of sounds, right? And this is common here in Ghana as well. Of course, people who don't come from languages that have this, they find these somehow difficult to pronounce, right? So something like this, mba. Sometimes they'll try to put a vowel in between. You say mbaba, neda. You're adding a n inside of it because they can't say nda, right? So the Luo language, we'll hear some small from that. Again, Luo spoken mainly in Kenya. Right? And what you'll hear is that as people are speaking their language, they'll make poetry based on the features of the language. Right? So if I have words that have these sounds. You'll hear this in when I'm speaking, when I'm rapping, when I'm doing all these things. Dinka language, mainly in Sudan. Now, the sounds of Dinka, they sound very similar to the sounds of Wolof. Now, all of them are around the same latitude, and they're at the south of the Sahara Desert. So you have this whole band called the Sahel. So along that region, you have languages that have similar sounds. So a Wolof speaker may not necessarily understand Dinka and vice versa, but some of the sounds may be similar. Right? So now we come to Afro-Asiatic, 371 languages. Now they are spoken mostly in North Africa, parts of East Africa, Horn of Africa, Somali, Oromo, Amharic. And it has a set of emphatic consonants variously realized as glottalized, pharyngealized, or implosive. They have a VSO typology. When you're saying VSO, this means that the verb comes in front, and then the subject, and then the object. Now, languages like Wolof also have something like that. Dim nafa. So dim is to go. So dim nafa. That's went I there. So you start off with the verb in that language. And there are other languages that are like this too. So also it has SVO tendencies. So just like Wolof as well, it has the subject, verb, object, same thing in Chi. This is what many of the Ghanaian languages have. So something like mi pe, monsieur, right? So the mid, this is now the subject, pe is the verb, then monsieur is the object, right? So again, different languages organize the language grammatically in different ways. Some will start with the verb first, some will start with the subject first, others start with the object first. And others can transform based on what you want to emphasize, right? So for example, if I want the object to come first in Chi, I could say, Insiu Namipe. So I have to add in the na, and now I can get a different type of structure to emphasize that this is the thing that I want, right? Very good. So you have two gender systems in the singular with the feminine marked by the sound T. You find this in Middle Nature as well. All Afro-Asiatic subfamilies show evidence of a causative affix. So you start to say to cause something to happen. So interestingly, you have a word, amk, and that's the word for a sculptor. So if I'm doing artwork and I'm a sculptor, and it's also the word for to cause to live. So the idea is that if you sculpt someone in stone, then you allow that person to live on years and years after they pass on through the image that has been retained. So you find this causative in languages like this. In the Somali language, let's hear an example of that. So hopefully you'll get a chance. What do you think the Somali language is spoken? You only get one guess for that. Yes, it's Somalia. So as you know that these languages exist, you can even start to study. Like when I go to a different country, especially a place where I really want to learn the language, I'll download an app for that language, right? Even Ghanaian languages, there are apps for these languages. So if you're interested, you can just download the app, you can listen to what it sounds like before you get there. So then when you go there, you're interacting with the people, you can greet them. You'll have a whole different reception when you do that, as opposed to you go and just start speaking your big English, right? Because what you're doing, you're saying, I want to interact with you in your own language. We showed an image of Mandela before. He has a quote where he says, if you speak to a person in a language he knows, that goes to his head. But if you speak to a person in his own language, that goes to his heart, right? So now you're hearing the languages, and now you can even make efforts to learn some of them. Oromo languages is spoken mainly in Ethiopia, in a place called Oromia. So when you hear Ethiopian people talk, as soon as they start talking, you will get an ear to say, this is definitely Ethiopia. Now, even sometimes when you don't understand the language, you can hear like, eh? That sounds like you can hear here. Now, they didn't come from Ethiopia to come to Ghana and say, oh, how are you doing that? Is it eh? This is something that African people share, just like some of the images that we're showing of gestures and other things. Something common to African people. We continue. This is Amharic. Where is Amharic spoken? Ethiopia as well. Very good. They have a similar setup, but this time they will be doing the same thing in Amharic. They say Dehna, Dehnanesh, Exay Meskum. Good. So now you can say, I've heard this language before, right? I'm taking you on a whirlwind tour all over Africa. So when you get done, you can pay me the cost of your ticket directly to my account. Good, so Khoisan, about 35 languages spoken in Botswana, Namibia, southern Angola, Zambia, western Zimbabwe, northern South Africa. These are some of the most complex languages in the world. Noted for having click sounds such as Nama and Ta. Ta has at least 58 consonants. 58 consonants is a lot. 31 vowels and 4 tones. Or at least 87 consonants, 20 vowels, and 2 tones. By many counts, this is the most of any known language. 20 or 43 click consonants. That means you can click in 43 different ways. I hope you got all of those. You should put all of those in your notes, please. Right? So 43 click consonants with several vowel phonations, though opinions vary as to which of the 130 or 164 consonant sounds are single segments and which are consonant clusters. So again, based on how old the language is, that's how many of these types of phonemes you have in the language, how many of the sounds that you have in the language. So 4 tones in the Eastern dialect: high A, mid A, low A, then mid falling A. The Ta syllable structure described maybe one of the following: you have a consonant and 2 vowels, 2 consonants, 2 vowels, consonant, vowel, consonant 2, another vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant 2, another vowel, consonant, vowel, nasal, consonant, consonant, vowel, nasal, right? So you have different types of structures of words that you have. This is what's called morphological structure of the word. Let's listen briefly to Khoisan language. So this is a hunter, and he's talking about how to follow animals that they are tracking, that you can look and see where they've messed up, you know, some of the grasses or other things, and all of these are signs to where the animal is. That one you don't. It does this. What do you think that is? Very good.
Is that the sign language?
No, he's speaking, but he's making gestures just like in Ghana, you see people, they say, I don't know. Huh? So we do all these things with our hands and other things when we are talking. We gesture with our right hand. We point to this, all of those. Good. So now we come to a folklore Goa poem. All right, now if everyone can repeat after her. This will be on your final roll. You have to. Good. And just like any language, you can tell stories in the language. So for Miss Cultural South Africa, they had to tell stories in their own language. So you hear the click is just a part of the language like anything else, right? That's the sound of running. Very good. Now, how many people know that in Ghana, there are click sounds in Ghana? Can someone make a sound? It's on. You hear people make that sound, but it's not part of the word, but people are still making these exact same sounds. It's like, oh, what is that? What is that? But you make the same sound all the time. If someone does something you don't like, you say, you're doing the same thing that they're doing. You just aren't making it part of your word. I hope you are getting it. If you want to call, that's one of the sounds that they have in the language. So you call someone, right? So all the same click sounds that you were just like, oh, it's so weird, it's so different. You make those sounds every single day, right? Now, I mentioned before that we'll go into the critique of that four phylum theory, these four language groups. Now, Theophile Obenga, this is a very important name to know, one of the most prominent African linguists. He says that what we should do is not cut these African languages up into four phyla, but we should look at them as one huge family, because you have the same words across all these different families, right? So even if you did say that there were four families, they all originally had one parent, right? So we have to look at this. And he gives examples from his book from 1993, The Word for Bad in Medu-Neter. This is B-E, bin. Then when you see this small swallow, it lets you know it has something to do with something bad. So here in Akan, you have the word bane, bane. that's bad, right? If I say Nitkubunga, I'm saying this is a bad person, you're a bad person. But it's the same word, bon. In Songhai, which is spoken in Mali, near Gao area, they have Bonin, right? So all these languages that are supposedly in different groups, different families, they still have the same basic word for the exact same thing. So why would you chop them up when they are coming from the same source, right? Also in Akan, well, first let's look at Middle Nature for inside. When you want to say this is in or inside, use this, which is Now you come to Akan, you use the exact same word, right? Then the mu comes after. Now in Kikongo they have the exact same thing, the mu, but in Kikongo they put the mu in front. So I say mukanda, I'm saying in the community, right? Munzo, in the house. But it's still this exact same thing. And Baole spoken in La Côte d'Ivoire, they have mo for inside, right? So the point is, why would you chop them up into these things and say, oh, these aren't related to these are different from those, when they all have the exact same words, they're coming from the same place, right? Another example, ba. So g, b, a, ba for arm. In Akan you have aba or basa, right? I say membo abaso, right? This is aba. In Yoruba you have apa for arm. For Chiluba, diboko. So it's either going to be ba, or bo, right? So again, the Europeans, they come here, they divide Africa just like they did during the Berlin Conference. So the same way they chop up Africa linguistically is the same way they chopped it up politically. And say, okay, you are Ghana, you are Nigeria, you are going to be this, you are going to be that. But they're not looking at the conditions on the ground, right? So just like we talk about, they did this. I hope everyone knows the Berlin Conference. It's in your slides, but we didn't get a chance to discuss it in class. What was the Berlin Conference? Very good. So this is where Africa was partitioned 1884 to 1885. And these boundaries that we have now, they did not consult African people to do those boundaries, right? They invited Belgium, Germany, of course, Russia, America, not black people in America, white people in America, you know, France, all these different places. And they said among all these Europeans, they would chop up Africa. And this is the same thing that they've done linguistically. So they didn't do that partitioning linguistically at the Berlin Conference. We're making an analogy to say that the same way they chopped up Africa politically is the same way they've chopped up Africa linguistically now, right? So we continue. So this is what, and again, he writes in French, but we'll give the translations of these. So it says you have Negro Egyptian, this is say black and Egyptian, which is even redundant because the word Kemet means what? Exactly, land of the blacks, referring to the black people. So he has this one Egyptian, Kuchitic, Chadic, Nilo-Saharian, Nigero-Kordofanian. And he's saying that all of these groups, no matter how you want to chop them up, they come from the same source, except for the Khoisan languages. Now, just about a year or so ago, a study came out that showed that genetically, the Khoisan people were part of a migration that went out into southwestern Eurasia, and then later, about 3,000 years ago, came back into Africa. So that's the reason why that's not included amongst these ones, because it's actually a different family group. Now when you come to languages in South Africa that have the clicks, it's because of aerial features. If we're all in the same area, we start to pronounce the same sounds. So you have isiXhosa that has clicks, isiZulu that has clicks, but those aren't indigenous to Bantu languages. So you have other Bantu languages that aren't close to those click speakers that don't have any of those clicks, right? So you have some sound features that are coming because we're all coming from the same source. You have others that are because we're all close to each other, right? And this is what you can find here. So this is a translation into English. He has Egyptian, Cushitic, Chadic, Nilo-Saharan, and Niger-Kordofanian, right? So you have similar groups, but again, the main point is all of them come from the same source ultimately, right? We have our black African family. We have a similar system which is coming from Jean-Claude Mboli, where he has Negro-Egyptian, Archaic. So he has these three branches, but his main point again is to say that all of them come from the same source. You have Hausa, Zande, Middle Egyptian, Coptic, Sango, Somali, that all of these different languages are coming from the same source. So he has a different method, but he's coming to the same conclusion essentially. And just as we mentioned, why not Khoisan? Because they went out of Africa 65,000 years ago. When we're talking about these languages that are related, we're talking about within about 10,000 years, you have a divergence, right? But this one went out about 65,000 years ago and then came back in about 3,000 years ago, right? This is around the time of around Djibouti Mess, came into Ethiopia, and some of the features of languages in Ethiopia, like these ejectives, all of those are coming, is basically the equivalent of the clicks. So the path that they took, it had an impact on the languages when they were around those people. They continue migrating down to where they are now, and the clicks have had an impact on the languages that they are close to, right? I hope it's clear. So that's why this one is separate from the other African languages, because this one diverged 65,000 years ago and only came back in around 3,000 years ago, as opposed to the other ones that have been here, never went anywhere, and we've just been interacting over this whole time. So common phonological features is talking about the sounds. Phonological is like when you talk about a phone, you're dealing with sounds. So many of them have vowel systems, plus ATR and minus ATR, and P works like this, right? And we can give you some examples of that. So for example, Ebuo, let's say that together, Ebuo, Ebuo, Ebuo. What is that word? My Chi speaker who pretends not to know Chi. Yes. You knew to put your hand up as soon as I said that. What is Ebuo? Yes. You're close. That one is Obuo. But you have some varieties that will use this one, but this has a different word as well. Ebuo. I should use it in a sentence. I don't want to use it in a sentence. This is a word for nest. Nest, right? It's also referred to as ribu, right? But it's coming from the same root, ibu. Now you have this ibu, but this one you have the a, u, o. All of those are coming from the top group. So what you have is the sounds are going to generally all come from this group or all come from this group. Let me give you another example that's similar. Ebois, ebois, ebois. Some will say obois, but it's still the same thing. What is this word? Stone, very good. So you have the the o, and the o, ebois, right? So you're not going to pick one of the vowels from here and say ebois, no. And you're not going to pick one of the ones from here and say ebois, ebois, no. So it's like this family and this family, they don't get along. So I only want to hang out with the people in my own family. If your family comes around, no. At the very least, we'll have to dress you up like someone from my own family and make you change clothes to be pronounced like someone from my own family. So this is what you have going on. This is called vowel harmony. It's very common in many African languages. So you have a similar thing, vowel harmony. A word of 2 or more syllables must contain vowels from the same set. Examples. Can anyone sing this for me? Right? That's good. You can do the whole song, but I know, but just for here. The point we're showing is that even across words, you have yan, ara, asa, sin. This is it being this one. Ni, yan, ara, asa, sin, ni. Ayabo, din, din, ma, yan. So this is going to be abo, din, din, ma, yan. And there's a reason why. Because the din is coming from this one. It has to be din, it, din, din, ma, yan. Right? So if you ever wonder why it's pronounced this way, it's because basically your tongue is either going to be in the front of your mouth for every vowel you make, or be retracted for every vowel you make. It would be very difficult to make your tongue go up, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. So if it's front, it will make everything front. If it's back, it will make everything back. Right? And this is how words operate in the language. So we'll see more of that as we get into the tree section. I think it's time.
Yes.
I have a couple of more slides, so please bear with me. It won't take but 3 minutes. Oh, my tired sister. You want to go and take your nap. All right, so you have consonants, implosives, ejectives, labial, start, be, nke, mpe. We won't go through examples. Syllables are divided into a sequence of syllables. Open syllables are common. This means consonant and vowel. This is the most preferred structure. You need to know this because when it comes time for you to do your test, you'll say, what is he talking about? Open syllables. I'm telling you what I'm talking about. I'm doing you a favor. Long words have vowels inserted like suku, right? So instead of saying school, because the s and the k don't go together, you insert a vowel. Now, a similar thing happens when people with other languages try to speak Ghanaian languages. They'll insert vowels. So if you hear British try to say Nkrumah, they say Kwame Nkrumah, they try to insert a vowel because in their minds those sounds can't go together. You learn as a child which sounds can go together and which ones can't. So now, again, as an adult, when you try to produce these things, your brain will automatically say those don't work together, insert something, right? So again, consonant clusters tend to be restricted, but there are nasal clusters. Nka, mpa, mfa. We have examples from other languages, but we won't have time. Tonality, we mentioned that most languages are tonal, high, low, mid, and you have a combination of rising and falling tones like in Yoruba, yo, to say it will. Lexical function, we gave this papa, papa, papa. Also, new words can be formed through derivational processes, compounding, adding two stems together. So if I have a word like ohene and ifye, I can make that ahimfye. So when I'm adding that, I'm saying the king's house, that's now a palace, ahimfye. Reduplication, so that means I've created a new word based on words that were already there. You have reduplication and triplication, so if I say papa, 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 it's coming from pop, which is good. If I say papa, 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 right? So if I'm doing it, it can intensify it, or it can mean I'm doing it more than once. Boo, 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 boo. So I'm breaking up many things. Then you also have language contact phenomena. So in a case where you have languages in contact, one can be seen to be held in higher esteem and the other one is in lower esteem. That's called diglossia. You also have code switching, which is the ability of a speaker to switch from one language to another. Also pidgins. This is what happens when you have several groups of different languages with no common lingua franca. You have a dominant language that comes in. They develop a pidgin language based on that. Also you have creoles, and this is when a pidgin comes to be the native language of a generation. We also have multilingualism, that is the norm in Africa. Individual multilingualism is if I, for example, can speak 7 languages, that's individual. But now let's say we have a language society where everyone speaks Guan, everyone speaks Akan, and everyone speaks English. Now you have societal multilingualism, right? And then we have Ghanaian languages playing a role in education. This is an assignment for you to comment on the language of education policy in Ghana from 1529 to 2002. This is by Charles Ohuimye. You have to download this document. and then write one page on this and submit it to my office, room 115, African Studies. And I'm in the Kwame Nkrumah complex. That's a story building. I'm on the ground floor. This one is by Charles Owiri. That is, death has come to an end. Owiri. Now, if someone has a name like that, you know that the mother tried to give birth previously, and the child died young. Previously, the child died young. So if you name the child Owiri, you're saying that death has come to an end. This one is going to stay around. And luckily this guy has stayed around. And what I'll do is I'll give the slides to one person. That person will be responsible for distributing it to others. So can I get a volunteer? So I hope everyone learned something today. Very good. And again, I took you on a trip around the whole continent. So your ticket, your plane fare, you can just give me the equivalent in Ghana cedis directly into my account. I'll put up my account information. Oh,